Oppenheimer is a 2023 epic biographical thriller film written and directed by Christopher Nolan, based on the 2005 Pulitzer Prize winning biography American Prometheus by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin. The film chronicles the career of American theoretical physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer. The story predominantly focuses on Oppenheimer's early studies, his direction of the Manhattan Project during World War II, and his eventual fall from grace due to the 1954 security hearing. The film stars Cillian Murphy as the title character, Emily Blunt as his wife Katherine Kitty Oppenheimer, Matt Damon as General Leslie Groves, head of the Manhattan Project, Robert Downey Jr. as Lewis Strauss, a senior member of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, and Florence Pugh as psychiatrist and Oppenheimer's mistress, Jean Tatlock. The ensemble cast also includes Josh Hartnett, Casey Affleck, Rami Malek, and Kenneth Branagh. The film was announced in September of 2021 after Universal Pictures won a bidding war for Nolan's screenplay following Nolan's conflict with longtime distributor Warner Bros. Pictures. Murphy was the first cast member to sign on the following month, portraying Oppenheimer, with the rest of the cast joining between November 2021 and April 2022. Pre-production was underway by January 2022, with the film taking place from February to May. Oppenheimer was filmed in combination of IMAX 65mm and 65mm large format film, including, for the first time in history, sections in IMAX black and white film photography. It is Nolan's first film to receive an R rating since Insomnia in 2002. Like his previous works, Nolan used extensive practical effects and minimal computer-generated imagery. Oppenheimer premiered at Le Grand Rex in Paris on July 11, 2023, and was theatrically released in the United States and United Kingdom on July 21, 2023, by Universal Pictures. Its simultaneous release with Warner Bros.' Barbie led to Barb and Oppenheimer, a phenomenon on social media which encouraged audiences to see both films as a double feature. Many have speculated that Warner Bros.' decision to release Barbie on the same day as Oppenheimer was done in order to deplete ticket sales of Oppenheimer as retaliation for Nolan releasing the film with Universal instead of Warner Bros. Due to the tonal and genre dissonance between the two films, in contrast to similar thematic elements, many social media users created memes about how the two films appeal to different audiences. In an interview with La Vanguardia, Cillian Murphy endorsed the phenomena, saying, "My advice would be for people to go and see both films on the same day. If they're good films, then that's the cinema's gain." Following the publication of the biography American Prometheus by Bird and Sherwin, director Sam Mendes had been interested in adapting the book into a film. After that project failed to materialize, the book was optioned off by various filmmakers over the next 15 years. The authors grew pessimistic about seeking their work adapted to the silver screen. In 2015, J. David Wargo optioned the book and then commissioned and rejected several scripts. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Wargo flew to Hollywood to meet with actor James Woods, who set up a meeting with Charles Roven, a producer for various Christopher Nolan films, and in turn, Roven gave a copy of the book to Nolan. Both Wargo and Woods are executive producers on the film. Nolan had long desired to make a film about Oppenheimer, even prior to reading American Prometheus. In 2019, towards the end of production on Nolan's science fiction film Tenet, star Robert Pattinson gave the director a book of Oppenheimer's speeches. According to Nolan, the speeches showed the physicist wrestling with implications of what happened and what he'd done. Nolan wanted to depict what it would have been like to be Oppenheimer in those moments, in contrast to Tenet, which employs time travel to curb potential weapon of mass destruction. In December 2020, Warner Bros. Pictures announced plans to give its 2021 films simultaneous release in theaters and HBO Max, citing the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the film industry. Nolan, who had partnered with the studio on each one of these films, starting with Insomnia in 2002, was outraged with the decision as he'd been a proponent of film theaters. In January 2021, media reports mentioned the possibility that Nolan's next film could be the first not to be financed or distributed by Warner Bros. Eventually, in September 2021, it was announced that Nolan would write and direct a biographical film set during World War II about Oppenheimer, with Cillian Murphy as the star. Because of his strained relationship with Warner Bros., Nolan approached multiple studios for the project, eventually coming to terms with NBC Universal, which agreed to give the film a full cinema release. Oppenheimer is the first screenplay written by Nolan in the first person, as he wanted the narrative to be conveyed from Oppenheimer's perspective. The intention was to make it a cautionary tale. A major plot element is Oppenheimer's response to the long-term consequences of his actions. Nolan wished to explore the phenomena, delayed reactions, as he felt people are not necessarily confronted with strongest or worst elements of their actions in that moment. He also chose to alternate between scenes in color and black and white to convey the story from both subjective and objective perspectives, respectively, with most of Oppenheimer's view shown by the former, while the latter depicts a more objective view of his history from the different characters' point of view. Wanting to make the film as subjective as possible, the production team decided to include visions of Oppenheimer's conceptions of quantum world and waves of energy. Nolan noted that Oppenheimer never publicly apologized for his role at the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but still desired to portray Oppenheimer as feeling genuine guilt for his actions, believing this to be accurate. Nolan began by trying to find the thread that connected the quantum realm and the vibration of energy in Oppenheimer's own personal journey, and sought to portray the difficulties in his life, particularly regarding his sex life. As such, Nolan wanted to candidly portray his affair with Jean Tatlock. He also wanted to explore Tatlock's influence on Oppenheimer's life, since she was a communist, which of course had enormous ramifications in Oppenheimer's later life. Nolan also sought to explore the relationship between Oppenheimer and Admiral Lewis Strauss, former chair of the Atomic Energy Commission, having been inspired by the relationship between Mozart and Antonio Salieri in Amadeus in 1984. Another critical moment of the film was the meeting in which President Harry S. Truman calls Oppenheimer a crybaby. Nolan wanted to convey the scene from Oppenheimer's perspective and felt it was a massive moment of disillusionment. Nolan first became aware of Oppenheimer as a youth after hearing the lyric "How can I save my little boy from Oppenheimer's deadly toy" in the Sting song Russians, which released in 1985. He was also inspired by his fears of nuclear holocaust throughout his childhood, as he lived during the era of the campaign for nuclear disarmament and the anti-nuclear protests in the RAF Greenham Common. Now, Oppenheimer marks the sixth collaboration between Nolan and Murphy, the first starring Murphy as the lead. To prepare for the role, the actor did what he summarized was an awful lot of reading on Oppenheimer's life, and he was also inspired by David Bowie's appearance in the 1970s. Nolan called Murphy one day to ask him to play the part, and Murphy enthusiastically accepted and was excited to play a lead in a Nolan film. Afterwards, Nolan flew to Dublin to meet with Murphy, who read the script in Nolan's hotel room by September 2020. Murphy lost an undisclosed amount of weight for the role in order to better match real-life Oppenheimer's gaunt appearance and learned several thousand words in Dutch. The casting process was so secretive that some cast members did not even know which role they would be playing until they signed on. Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon and Emily Blunt took pay cuts to work on the film, earning $4 million in lieu of their usual $10 to $20 million upfront salary. Downey went to Nolan's house to read the script, which was printed in black on red paper. Downey described Oppenheimer as the best film in which he'd appeared to date. Blunt met Nolan in Los Angeles, and when she was offered the role of Katherine Kitty Oppenheimer, she enthusiastically accepted. She also contacted Murphy to get an expectation of what working with Nolan would be like. Damon, who had previously worked with Nolan on Interstellar in 2014, was taking a break from acting as a result of negotiations with his wife and couples therapy, but signed on to Oppenheimer as he had reserved one exception if Nolan offered him a role. Nolan cast writer-director Benny Safdie as physicist Edward Teller after asking director Paul Thomas Anderson about his experience directing Safdie in Licorice Pizza. Safdie had worked alongside a nuclear physicist at Columbia University while in high school. The film also marks the first time in many years Nolan has not cast Michael Caine, who appeared in every Nolan film since Batman Begins in 2005. Nolan stated he was with us in spirit, but not as an actual actor in this film. Now, this film is an absolute masterpiece and one of Christopher Nolan's best films in years. It's nuanced, it's layered, and it's exceptionally complicated, with heavy dialogue and very strong political messages intertwined into what is, of course, a fascinating real-life story of this genius of a man who unfortunately headed a team of phenomenal scientists who created one of the most deadly and divisive weapons ever made. Cillian Murphy is absolutely spectacular in the role and definitely deserves an Oscar nomination for this one. It really is a tour de force performance here, and he carries the film on his back. He is helped though by a star-studded cast, a huge amount of phenomenal actors that each play each one of their roles perfectly. You can see this was a pleasure to be a part of, and each actor really takes their role with a lot of passion and absolute seriousness. This is a masterfully constructed character study, and the film will leave you with a sense of foreboding and almost fear at the full extent of how powerful this bomb that they created was, and how it affects our daily lives even to this day. How it affects every single political move that is made within the world, and how we constantly live in fear of knowing that somebody, somewhere, could easily use this power once again. In many ways, Oppenheimer isn't just a movie, it's almost sort of a warning to humanity, and just how dangerous we can be towards one another. One thing that made me think about when leaving this film was just how wasted these great minds were. These great minds could have been used to save the world, to better the world, to make it a better place. Instead, their minds were put towards to making one of the most awful and vile weapons ever created. And it asks the question, is humanity great and terrible in the same breath? This film is truly a cinematic achievement. Nolan's script is absolutely on point. The acting is magnificent. There's an emotional intimacy and an examination of the limits of the human mind. One of my small gripes with the film maybe was I would have chosen to show the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki just to show you exactly how powerful this bomb was that really created and create that emotional impact. But Nolan went a different way, and in many ways the film still hits home perfectly. For me, in many ways, this film is a complete and utter political statement. It highlights and resonates with the world we live in today, and the mistakes that we continuously make from not learning from history's biggest in the past. From its magnificent performances, its outstanding direction, beautiful storytelling, and hard-hitting message, Oppenheimer gets a 9.5 out of 10.